If you're a lineman in charge of keeping the lights on, Grainger understands that you go to great lengths and sometimes heights to ensure the power is always flowing, which is why you can count on Grainger for professional-grade products and next-day delivery, so you have everything you need to get the job done. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Lowe's knows that no matter your paint or stain project, saving is at the top of your to-do list. Save now with buy one, get one half off select paints, stains, and primers from top brands like Valspar, HGTV Home by Sherwin-Williams, and Cabot via Visa gift card rebate. Find more Memorial Day deals now at Lowe's. We help, you save. Selection varies by location. While supplies last. Discount taken at time of purchase. See sales associate for details. Offer valid 5/15 through 5/28.
The following broadcast is brought to you by the iGolf Sports Network.
Golf Talk Live is sponsored by the iGolf Sports Network and Golf Tips Magazine. Here's Andrew to tell you more about our sponsors.
iGolf Sports is a live stream broadcast and media production company providing quality programming designed to attract the golfing enthusiast. And Golf Tips, the game's most in-depth instruction magazine, including reviews on the latest equipment, tips from top teaching professionals, all designed to help you improve from tee to green. Welcome to Golf Talk Live with your host, Ted Odorico. Join Ted each week as he speaks with some of the best in golf. This week's special guest will join us a bit later. But first up is another great discussion on Coach's Corner. So let's introduce tonight's Coach's Corner panel.
All right, everybody, welcome to Season 13 of Golf Talk Live. I'm your host, Ted Odorico. Joining me this week on the Coach's Corner session is John Hughes and Clint Wright. I'm going to tell you a little bit about those guys in just a moment. Tonight, I'm also going to be joined by a very special guest, Bob Forman. He's a golf fitness professional. He's going to come on after these guys and talk a little bit about how to get ready for the new season from a physical standpoint. So we'll talk to him a little bit about that, how to get you in shape. And then a little bit later on in the broadcast, I'm going to be joined by my featured guest, David Hunter, the CEO of ShotScope. He'll be coming on the third segment of the show. So I hope you'll stick around for that. But glad you guys could join us. Don't forget, you can tune into the broadcast every Thursday night. It's going to be uploaded to our YouTube channel and also onto Spotify to see the video version. And then you can also go to Spreaker.com and you'll hear all of the previously aired podcasts in audio version, and also all of the new ones as well. The audio version will be available there, and basically anywhere that you listen to audio podcasts, you can tune in. So, but thanks for joining me. Let me introduce my guys on the Coach's Corner panel. First up, of course, is John Hughes. He's a PGA Master Professional and the honorary president of the North Florida PGA section. He was also the recipient of the 2013 PGA of America's Professional Development Award, and also the 2023 North Florida PGA Teacher and Coach of the Year. He's also a senior contributing editor and top 25 instructor with Golf Tips Magazine. Also joining on the panel is Clint Wright, a 30-plus year member of the PGA and one of the partners at TGM Golf. And TGM Golf, of course, is a big proponent of the R3 approach. And I consider him to be certainly among the best pros to have really covered the short game. And much like John, he's also a favored guest here on Coach's Corner. So, guys, welcome to Coach's Corner panel.
Glad to be here, Ted. Looking forward to it.
What's going on, Ted? Thanks for letting us join you.
I appreciate it. Always look forward to having a good time. This year is going to be a little bit different. We've got the video added, so it's going to be a little bit more interesting for people to view, and we're going to try to have some fun along the way, not only tonight, but obviously through the season. So I appreciate you guys joining me. So we're going to talk about what I like to refer to spring fever, as we get people getting ready to come out of the sort of the winter blahs and get ready for a new golf season. We're going to talk about how to prepare for a new season. So one of the things, and John, I'm going to start with you if you don't mind first, is I think one of the important things is to get both a assessment for both the swing and obviously fitness level. I'll talk to Bob about that a little bit later on when he joins me on the show. But from a golf swing perspective, what is your take on having an assessment at the beginning of the year, and why is that important for our amateurs?
First, thanks again, Ted, for the opportunity as always. Clint, always good to see you. This time seeing you is better than
Absolutely.
hearing you, which is great. Uh, the assessment, I think you have to really be cautious of if you're just going to jump right in and do it, and you've had this long time that you haven't been active.
Right.
Go get active first. Go out and hit some balls. Go out and stretch. Do all these things that you would normally do, realizing there's some rust to take the sandpaper to and kick off yourself. Realizing that you're going to need some time to get your body not necessarily back in shape, but at least understanding what your golf swing's going to be. Is there some holdover from the improvements you made the year before? Typically, what I tell people, particularly in the North, is let's do that assessment in October, November, and we use the winter months indoors to keep things going. For those people who hibernate, they're up in Canada, Alaska, wherever they are hibernating, and all of a sudden the dust comes off the golf clubs when they pulls out of the garage in April. Take your time. Take your time. Find somebody who understands your swing, preferably if you got to go to someone new, give that some time to mature. The real key here is being patient. You've taken some time off. You've got to realize that there will be some rust. Once you get that rust off, don't be surprised if the assessment finally meets your expectations.
Wow.
Go in with an open mind. Go in knowing that you haven't regressed. And the way I explain it to my clientele is you come in at a level last year and you may have had a nice little ramp up and you reach that plateau, let's call it. But over the winter, maybe you got back down to that same level.
Right.
That's reverting. Regression is when you dip below it. And so long as your assessment's saying that, hey, you're at least here, if not a little bit above, take that as a positive. If there's regression, understand why you regressed. Is it a physical something that happened? Is it clubs breaking or any of the other sundry reasons that may have happened? But at the end of the day, realize anything above where you started last year is actually a good thing. And if you've never had an assessment, why not start? Why not start right away once you've gotten yourself ready to take that assessment, both physically and emotionally?
Yeah, that's a great point that you raised, John. And again, people sort of finish off the season. Usually, in most cases, they finish off pretty strong and they're pretty excited about it. And for those that take advantage of things that you're offering, where they're able to continue to work on their game through the winter months, even if it's indoors and they're not able to come down to the sunny south and be able to enjoy some of the good weather that we have, they're a little bit less likely to see somewhat of a slump if it were. Whereas a lot of those that are sitting around for 3-4 months, they're into hockey, they're into some other activities, or they're just not really in the mood. They just want sort of a little bit of downtime. You need to kind of see where they're at in the beginning of the season to kind of see where do we need to begin. Do we need to sort of work on some specific things? We're going to get into that with you, Clint, a little bit as well. But I appreciate it. It was a great answer and enjoy that. All right. So Clint, for you, I think what I want to do is sort of pivot now. And now that we have a little bit better understanding of where maybe the player is at, obviously we want to encourage them to continue to take lessons if they've been finishing off from last season, or maybe if a first-time golfer coming out to take some lessons. One of the things I think obviously is to isolate some of the trouble areas that they may be struggling with, and then perhaps put together some sort of a plan of attack. Give us your thoughts on that.
Well, certainly. I mean, that, you go back to Jack Nicklaus when he came back, after the wintertime, the first thing they wanted to look at was his fundamentals, his setup, things of that nature. We use a what we call a protocol, which the beginning of that is an assessment. And you assess everything. We want to assess what the club's doing. We want to assess, the path of the club. Then we want to assess what your body's doing. Is there anything that just kind of sticks out to you that's creating a problem? And it's to my opinion, it's very regimented. I mean, you start at what the tool's doing, what the club's doing, and then you just move to the next stage, next stage, in order to determine where the trouble areas are, if there are any. Then, if once you've decided what those trouble areas may be, then you have to have some kind of prescription or some idea how to fix it. And that's probably well into the getting back into the game a little bit after the winter. But you have to have I think, a very regimented approach, one step at a time. And you see a lot of people don't pay much attention to what the club's doing when they come out. They just want to hit balls and swing, and they really don't know what's causing it. And so then what happens is, and Johnny, we've all seen this, that they come for a lesson and they tell you what's wrong with their swing. And a lot of times it's not even where close to that. So they're oh no, but see what happens.
Absolutely assess.
Right.
That's correct, and you pointed out. I mean, to me, the greatest thing that ever happened to the golf instructor was a video, an iPad or a phone. It was really easy to use, and to point out the fact that what they think is wrong is pretty good, and what they thought was pretty good may not be so good. So it's correct. The correct assessment, the diagnosis of the problems will lead to the proper fixes, and that takes a little time and some observation.
Yeah, well said. I couldn't agree more. I appreciate that, Clint. Thanks. So John, coming back to you, we talked a little bit before we went on, about, and Clint very eloquently pointed out, is, about going over the fundamental, sort of a fundamental check, if you will, at the beginning of the season to make sure. So what do we want our golfers really specifically looking for, and what can they do to ensure that they're putting together some sound fundamentals? Obviously, they're going to be in front of you, and you're going to be able to guide them in that. But again, if they've been sitting for several months, they, instead of sitting in front of the TV and practicing holding the grip, they've just been doing other things. So now they get out, they're a little bit rusty. What can we do to make sure that we sort of reassess, if you will, the fundamentals and make sure they're doing them correctly when they're coming at the beginning of the season?
So if you started the year before doing all that, why would you not start the next year doing the same thing? And tour pros obsess about their aim, their body alignment, their posture, their balance, their ball position, their grip. They obsess over it. What the amateur does is takes 4 months off, having a lot of fun, seeing a lot of people. Oh, it's golf season, and they just get the clubs out and just start swinging. But yet, the year before, they were semi-obsessed with at least 2 or 3 of those setup positions. Why would you not start where you left off?
Yeah,
I think that's something I'm constantly reminding people of. Just because you took the time off doesn't mean you're not going to swing the same. You're not going to swing the same because you're not setting up the same. You're not as detailed, you're not as disciplined to what you were doing before.
Right.
But for the person just starting out, learning one setup at a time. I'll go back to an analogy, learning the rules of golf. I was told, read the definitions. And if you know the definitions and read them one at a time, you start understanding how all these definitions intertwine, and you get to know about 80 to 90% of the rule book that way. Your setup's the same way. If you get to know your aim and alignment and then your balance and posture right away as the 2 or 3 most important ingredients, and you always go back to that every practice session, every coaching session, without exception.
Right.
That kind of discipline and detail is what your brain's thirsting for. When you tell me that you're inconsistent, I'll guarantee you 100% that you're inconsistent with those things, which makes your swinging consistent. And I think if you're, I said it jokingly in that last transition, that's why Clint and I and you constantly assess our golfers all the time. And we're being obsessive with these things because we know that's how the machine needs to be set up. And I think if the amateur can literally just take ownership of that, wrap their arms around it, give it a big hug, and realize that this is me. This is how I have to do things to make me more efficient as an athlete. You can't go wrong with that.
Yeah, well said. Just very quickly, and then Clint, I'm gonna come back to you
Sure.
with the next question. But I think it is important, as we've would all acknowledge, to have sort of an ongoing assessment. I mean, you really are assessing. You might have a bigger or more expansive version of it at some point throughout the year, but you're really assessing along the way, and you want the player to really acknowledge that, look for some of these issues that they may be dealing with, and then sort of reevaluate themselves and say, okay, how have I we've done our assessment, we've looked at some trouble areas, we've been working on some issues, and maybe a month later, a week later, 2 weeks later, how am I progressing? Am I seeing any changes? Do we need to reevaluate or reassess again? So I mean, it's an ongoing process, really. And you're right. I think as golf professionals, we kind of obsess a little bit about it, but I think it's for good reason, because it's very easy for a lot of golfers to sort of move off the fray. They get going in a certain direction, they're not really paying attention, and they kind of fall back into some typical old patterns, if you will. So it's important for us as professionals to kind of keep them moving in the right direction. Otherwise, they tend to fall back and end up doing some of the status quo, if you will. Clint, another one, and I know we've talked about this, but this is a new show, a new format, so we're going to cover some things. Obviously, practicing with purpose. We've all been there. We've been out on the golf course, and we see on the practice range rather, and we see people just raking and hitting balls all day long, not really doing anything to sort of improve.
Right. That's
What advice
right.
have you got for somebody that's needing to practice with a little bit of purpose in the step?
Well, I think it all goes back to the things we've talked about all along this evening, is that you have to determine and be aware of what you're supposed to be working on, particularly if you're getting back into the season. It's really difficult to maybe to go practice with a purpose, at the end of the season, because you understand it's kind of waning out. And the middle of the season, once you've been playing a good bit, some of those areas present themselves quite clearly. That you go out and you play and you hitting everything to the right or pulling everything, you kind of got an idea of what may or may not be causing it. But in the early portion of getting back into the season, I think that one of the things that I like to get a student to do is, when they think they're playing really well, you need to get that on video. You need to have a baseline as to, here's what I was doing when I thought I was hitting it really good. Then you have something you can fall back on and compare to. This is okay. Here's what it looks like now. Here's what it looked like when I felt like, and my teacher felt like I was really making a good swing and making good contact. The direction was good. Here's what it looked like then. And in most video programs, you can overlay it and have them side by side and pick out those areas that are different. Okay, and they'll be pretty clear. I mean, I don't think it's anything you have to be guessing at. It'll point itself out pretty easily. So then, what you have to do then is, that's what you go to have your practice with some purpose. But until you have some idea of what the clear purpose needs to be, I mean, it's easy to just drag over and hit balls. So I would encourage people throughout their summer, get that good swing on video. Get a good picture of what your setup looks like, what the club's doing, and talk through it. Here's what I'm feeling in my golf swing. I mean, I see a lot of people take it, there should be some conversation on those videos that you get with your instructor. Here's what I'm thinking, here's what I'm aware of, here's what I feel in my swing. So when I get off, I'm not trying to go down a different path to find it again. I go down the same path with the same thoughts, looking for the same feelings that I had when I was striking it well. So then you begin to have not a guessing game or trying to go down a new path or a new road to find what you thought you had. You have that pathway. You know the steps you took to get there the first time. And if you have that on video recording to understand how you got there, you just revert back to the beginning again and rewind, start over. And that's where the purpose comes from.
Yeah, I think it's important to you're right, to have a baseline to work from and something to compare to. And I like the fact, too often players are trying to compare themselves to what they're seeing on TV. So they're trying to compare themselves to a pro,
Right.
And, there may be, it's not so much the ability that's the big difference. It's the fact that, you've got somebody that's 5'2" and he's trying to compare against a player that's
Right.
6'4". And,
Yeah.
the body style, body symmetry is just different. You got somebody that's got a little quicker pace and he's trying to emulate Ernie Els or a Freddie Couples or somebody that's got a little bit,
Right.
more modest tempo, if you will. So yeah, you really need to have that baseline to work from. And again, as you pointed out earlier, and now again, is having the access with video gives us a much
Mhm.
better perspective, not just for them, but also for us to get a good look and say, okay, yeah, this, you're hitting them well. This looks really good. Let's overlay those videos and let's see what you're doing differently now as opposed to what you're doing before, or if you're running into some issues, what you're doing now again. So yeah, you need to have that. And
Absolutely. And
I
it's
think
so
that's
easy nowadays. John knows it. He's got guys that send him videos all the time. It's everybody's got a video camera in their pocket now, so there's really no excuse not to have that.
Yeah, unfortunately, iPhone and Android hasn't come up with a way to actually improve the golf swing.
Oh, this is
By
true,
shooting
but I
it.
mean,
I mean, you can make it look good, but I mean, to actually do something to physically make it better. But we'll see. Who
that's
knows the
right.
As long
technology?
as it's not incriminating either of us, it's okay.
Right.
That's true.
Exactly.
That's right.
All right. So John, I want to come back to you for this next one, and let's talk about expectations, because a lot of folks, and I'll throw an example. You've got a 25 handicap, and he's you know wanting to play with his buddies, and they're playing from the championship tees. That's just not going to fly. He's barely not even breaking he's not breaking 100 actually, and he's running into a lot of difficulty all the time. There's a lot of things that he can do, but he has to be realistic in his expectations. So walk us through this. What should he be looking at? What should he be doing? And what are some steps that he can take to give himself maybe a better chance at getting closer to par, at least, than what he has been experiencing maybe over the last several months? So what does he need to do to make it realistic?
Thanks for the question, because I'm constantly talking about this with clients all over the world.
Yeah.
And over the past couple of months, I've actually evolved this a little bit. Expectations, I think, are something that we shouldn't place upon ourselves. We should place those upon others, and give them reasons to perform at that level. So as coaches, I think we should be going to clients and saying, well, based on the time both you and I are putting into this, and based on this and based on that, my expectation of you is to be this. It's a motivating factor. It's an inspiring factor from a coach to a client, a coach to a student. And I think that is healthy because we're talking about goals and plans for you to reach that pinnacle. When the golfer comes with expectations, I've always said this, and I will go to my grave saying this: you've come to me with goals without a plan.
Yeah.
You've come to me wanting magic dust, and if I had magic dust, I would not be here with you right now. I would be off in some remote island and lots of money. And Clint, yeah, you can join me. You can retire there with me. But that's what I think golfers really have to grab a grip on. Is just because you think somebody else can do it doesn't mean that you can do it.
Right.
And if you really want to do it, how are you going to get there? What's the plan? And does that plan have small objectives along the way for you to reach that are realistic, which keeps you motivated, which keeps you inspired to keep working to get to that nirvana? When you come in thinking, well, I played soccer, I played this, I played that, I ought to be able to do this.
Mhm.
No, sorry. In the game show world, doesn't work. What you've got to be able to do is understand, here's what I did as an athlete, and what am I capable of doing with this ball on the ground. And if I'm going at it too quickly with this expectation, how did I get that good before? You probably slowed down. You probably worked in smaller chunks, and you probably sat down and made some smaller goals. Hey, if I really want to get this, I'm going to have to do that. And I think that's the way anybody should be approaching an expectation. I actually ask my clients to rid that word of their vocabulary. that when I hear them say that, I'll time out. You said the wrong word. You cursed, basically. Can you reword that for me?
Right.
And I'm not asking for me, I'm asking for them, because I want them to clear their conscience of what's to be expected. Let me give you that expectation, but I'm not going to give it to you without a goal and a plan to get there. That's what you've got to be doing to reach that.
Yeah, well said. And you know, there's so many different things that we look at as coaches, you know, especially, and again, you know, John and myself and you know, Clint, you know, we have the ability, being here in the South, to carry that, you know, lesson T a little bit longer than some of the other guys that are up in some of the other parts of the country and that. So we're very, very fortunate. But realistically, it's just it's sort of human nature. We look at the winter months a little bit differently. We maybe some might be busier in the winter months, depending on where you're coaching out of. In the summer months, things might shift a little bit because of excessive heat or whatever. But so there's always adjustments being made. Um, but Clint, I want to ask you from this standpoint is, what are some steps? So if you've got somebody, let's say you've not worked with them for before, you're going to maybe you're going to start off with kind of seeing where they're at. You want to do sort of an initial assessment to get an idea. What are you
Sure.
looking at, number one? And when they come out for the first time, is it beginning with a mainly a conversation to kind of understand what they're looking for, what their goals, what their direction they want to go, the why, if you will, as to why they're playing there? What's the first confrontation, or sorry, not confrontation, pardon me, forgive me for
Conversation.
that, conversation going to be? Thank
Right.
you. Be with that person that comes up to your facility the first time. What's that going to be like?
Well, I think you try to find out as much about them as you can. If you've never met them before, sometimes you've seen them at the club, or you kind of know it, and you got some insight on how they play, if they're a member at your club or a frequent player. If not, you know, I want to kind of know, like, did you play other sports? You know, be, you know, kind of the Ted Lasso. I want to be curious. You know, I don't want to make any judgments yet. I want to be curious about who you are. Find out, you know, what kind of player you are now. What's your scores? You know, you know, other sports you've played. I want to just get to know them the best I can. Find out what their kind of attitude and maybe their emotions are, and primarily at that particular point, get them to relax a little bit, because when they come for the first lesson and you're trying to get, they're going to be nervous. You want to try to get them to settle down and relax a little bit. So that conversation may take a little bit longer than what most would, but you want them to begin to feel comfortable around you. All right.
Yeah.
So then at that point, once we start, you know, making some swings and whatever, it's obvious what I look for to begin with is, what's the golf club doing? You know, that's the tool of the game. What's the club doing? Is the club face shut down, open up, evaluate the path of the club? Are they maintaining an angle? I want to see what they're doing with the club. Once we feel like that's in a pretty good shape, I want to be able to see how they're supporting that with their body motion.
Right.
Some people may go to the body motion first, because any sport you play starts from the ground up. You have to have good footwork. You have to have movement, those things. So I could see where you could look at that in reverse, but I've always kind of wanted to see what the club was doing. Particularly, I deal a little bit more with short game, and it's not quite as much body motion there, obviously. So I look at the club. Then we want to see how they're supporting that club movement with their total body motion, and then begin to evaluate which one of those we need to focus on to start with. It could be sometimes we'd focus on the club a little bit. Sometimes we'd focus on the body motion first. Just depends on where they're at. As you progress on through a lesson program, they were going to want to talk a little strategy. Once they can kind of move it, how am I going to help you learn to play now? The first two things we look at, obviously, is how you're going to hit it.
Yeah.
And we've had this conversation many times on the show. Hitting a golf ball is not playing golf. The strategy and the emotions and how you manage yourself around the golf course. You can call it course management. I like the word strategy better, because that kind of develops me in it as well, versus where I'm going to aim. My strategy is to stay relaxed and calm down, but then I'm still going to have a course management that I need to keep it to the right or keep it to the left, in particular where I play. So that's the direction I would go in. Get them comfortable with you, understand what their goals are and what they think their goals may be, and where they kind of think where they're at now. How close are we? And give them a good evaluation and start picking and choosing on where we want to work first, without a doubt.
Yeah, well said. And John, I think once you've kind of done what Clint's talking about, at what point do you start piecing things together? And I'll give you an example of what I'm talking about here. You might do a lot of your evaluation. You're evaluating their swing. You're looking at different things that they're doing and not doing, and you're trying to decipher, okay, where is things that really particularly need to work on. But in the process, you've noticed that they have virtually no pre-shot routine. They're sort of all over the place. Is that something that you want to try to ingrain with them early on in the process and get them working on a pre-shot routine so that when they're even in the practice session, when they're up there, they're constantly reinforcing that routine so that when they get out on the golf course, whether it be with you or on their own, they've already got some good steps in place for that? Or do you wait until a little bit later on in the process until you've worked out some other things and it's okay, now let's put it all together. Let's work on a good pre-shot routine. Where does that fit in your mind?
It depends on the person. If it's an absolute beginner, trying to have them understand this entire routine may not gel. It may not be up in their immediate future vision of what they should be doing.
Right.
And to keep them engaged and to keep them from staying a beginner, that they can advance, maybe we're doing that a little bit later. But to Clint's point, strategy, I love that word. I use self-management instead of course management. In this self-management, are you doing the things necessary to manage yourself? And that's what a routine does for you, in essence. And I'll enter, if you're a 15 or better, yeah, we're talking about that right away. And I'm sort of harping on it the first couple of coaching sessions. And then I'm going to back away and see what happens. Because at some point, you're going to have to be out there without me, without Clint, without you, and you're going to have to learn from your mistake of what your routine is or isn't doing for you, and if you're doing a routine at all, and how that routine mirrors what you do on the golf course. And that's what you're trying to do in a coaching session, in a practice session. Now, you could purposely be working mechanical and not have to go through that routine because maybe you're making a major improvement to your motion. Maybe your brain needs to be concentrated and focused solely on that. But at some point, you've got to merge it into what you do on the golf course. And that routine is, I call it the traffic circle of golf. It's not a one-way street from the range to the golf course. It's a traffic circle. And the only thing that remains in that traffic circle constantly is your routine. It's the bridge that provides you the rhythm and tempo and timing to be able to function out on that golf course. So if it's working on the golf course, and this is typically when someone has that aha moment, learning from the mistakes. They realize, wow, I was out there and it was sort of timeless. I wasn't rushing through things. It was almost laissez-faire. Yeah, well, let's come back to the range and do that too. Why did you experience it there and not on the range? Or doesn't it make sense that you probably planted the seed on the range somewhere?
Right.
And by evaluating a shot a little bit longer or a little bit deeper, almost closer to what you do on the golf course, because there's a pre-shot routine and there's a after-shot routine, and most people will do that after shot. And if they can't figure out the pre-shot, I'll start them there, and then work our way back around. But at the end of the day, you're without a pre-shot routine, how can you manage yourself? Without a pre-shot routine, how are you going to know what your target is and how you're going to play your ball flight? Without a pre-shot routine, how are you going to know if you're feeling good about your swing? Is there an ache or pain that's getting in your way? The list goes on and on and on.
Sure.
That pre-shot routine can cover. And when you're not performing it at all, it's probably the number one injustice that amateurs do to their game besides a poor setup.
Yeah, well said. Um, Clint, one of the things, just to piggy, excuse me, pardon me, to piggyback a little bit on what John was saying, a pre-shot routine is really, I look at it as covering a few things. It's not only helping to get yourself organized for before every shot, and getting yourself prepared for the next shot that's coming your way, but it's also a way of instilling discipline in what you do. And if you look at the pros on TV, they'll go through their pre-shot routine. If for some reason they're interrupted somewhere throughout that routine, and some players are better than others. Tiger was famous for this. If he got out of sync, Annika Sorenstam was another one. They went back and they repeated. Most of them do, but some of them
Yeah.
do it a little bit differently. But the really good players go through that whole routine. They'll start right from square one and go through again. So it's really about discipline as well, right? I mean, it's not just about,
Absolutely.
because you're
Yeah.
instilling a form of discipline in whatever you do. Go ahead.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I don't. The word discipline is right, but I think that what most players that really have a solid that routine that they're going to repeat. If they get disrupted, they're not going to allow that to disrupt it. They're going to start over. They've spent a lot of time on the practice tee developing an awareness about what part of a routine helps them get to where they want to be. See, I'm not really big on, okay, you got to start from behind it. You got to do this. You got to do that. That's the best routine. That may be for you, but it may not be for me. You
Right.
know, we saw, and you guys remember a guy named George Archer. He would hitch his pants up every time. He found obviously something in there that helped him get prepared. I don't know what it was, but he did it every time. And so I think that we have to go to the practice tee, not necessarily to do this routine, but go to the practice tee to find your routine. Try different things. There's nothing wrong with saying, well, that didn't work very good. Let's try something else. Because you can't repeat something that you're not aware of.
Yeah.
And so go to that lesson tee to become aware of how you can prepare yourself better to make as good a swing as you can. There's no guarantees, obviously. But I don't think that it's something that's just a textbook type of thing.
No.
I mean, you can start out with it that way and figure out what part of it you want to keep and what part of it you want to do something different. There's nothing wrong with that. But I find some people get so ingrained in watching what they do on television. I'm going to do it that way. Well, that worked for that player, but not necessarily for me. It's kind of like what we talked about a few minutes ago. I'm 5'9" or 5'10", and I'm trying to swing like Shepard. I mean, it just doesn't work. So his routine doesn't work for me either. So I think you have to go to the range. And this comes back to this practice with purpose. Is you're going to go to the range or wherever you're going to, and your purpose there is to discover what your best pre-shot routine will be. And it may take a few attempts before you really lock in on something. And then you're right, Ted, it becomes a discipline to do what you're aware of each time. But to me, the real important issue about the pre-shot routine is for you to simply find the one that works for you, become aware of it, and then you got something you can work with.
Yeah, because you raise a really good point, because I've seen some people with pre-shot routines, and there's so many components to it. I mean, even though it's quick,
Right.
you sense that they're rushing it. They're not really focusing on anything specific. They're just,
Mhm.
okay, well, I've got to do this. I've got to, and Freddie used to, if you remember, famously used to tug on his shirt. And I used to
Sure.
see kids all the time out in the range doing, emulating Freddie Couples. They'd be tugging on the sleeve of their shirt, trying to do the same thing. But then they'd get up there and they'd be, squirrely and all over the place. They weren't really getting into their routine. So I mean, it's really about finding your focus. What's going to get you focused and prepared to execute that next shot? And then once you do find that, then you want to bring it into a consistency so that you're doing it every time. And I've seen some people too that have a very different focus or pre-shot routine, if you will, on their long shots. But then when they get on the putting surface, it's modified somewhat. They don't go through this exact same routine.
Mhm.
So it's a little bit different. I've seen people have done that, have been very, very successful. I've seen others that just doesn't matter what shot they're doing. It's got to be, straight on every single time. It's got to be the same thing. But you're exactly right. You've got to find what works for you, and what's going to help get the results that you're looking for. And it doesn't matter. I mean, you can certainly try, as you pointed out, you can try what you see on TV, see if that works for you. But yeah, it's really just a baseline. Going back to what the term you use, it's a baseline for us to say, okay, let's try to put together a pre-shot routine. Okay, this one doesn't work for you. How do you, what do you want to modify? What do you feel works best for you? But yeah, just to give them a sort of a baseline to run with and see what works best for them, and then make modifications or tweaks. But then, you've got to help them to help organize a little bit that's going to work and be conductive and conducive for their efforts. But yeah, great points. John, I want to come back to you for a second, and then we're going to do a wrap up. It's hard to believe, but we're getting close to our time. What I want to do with you is I want you to look at it from the perspective. I mean, here we are, we're literally just a week or so away from spring. People are going to start some have already gotten out, but people are really going to start thinking about it. We got the Masters, a stone's throw away. People are getting golf excited right now. So what would be, in your final words, what would be your best advice that you would give somebody that's not have the fortunate ability to be able to be down south where we are, that's maybe coming out of some of these northern climates? What's the first thing that you want them to be focused on as they get ready for the spring?
Their patience level, number one. It sounds like a joke, and I say it jokingly, but the patience level is really big. Back to expectations, back to self-management, back to a routine that works for you. You're probably most relaxed when you're the most patient.
Yeah.
And sometimes patience is hard to have. It's hard to find. So when you're first getting out there, be patient with yourself. Be patient with the processes that make you successful. They'll come back. If you're in a hurry, you're rushing it, you're prolonging the inevitable. Second thing is work on squaring the face of the golf club. Always. That's king. Whether it's short game, putting, driver, everything in between. Can you start out a little small, work from small into smooth, and square the club face? And that's all you're trying to do. Third, let's grow into your swing from that. And it goes along with patience. But I think as you grow into your swing, you're also growing into your game. To Clint's point, what's the strategy I'm going to take? Where am I going to start the ball, and where do I want it to end up? When you're more patient with yourself at the beginning, when you're working on squaring the face, and you know that your trend and tendency is to leave it, just for numbers' sake, 1.5 degrees open.
Yeah.
No matter what club you have, you're probably going to hit a little bit of a fade, take ownership of it, and now be patient with that process to allow that fade to work for you. And number 4, again, going along with patience, there's a place to fix and there's a place to play.
Yeah.
Make sure you understand the difference between the two, and never, ever intertwine them. When you can keep those entities separate, I think you're going to have a lot more fun with the game. You're going to see more success right away. You're going to have some longer term vision as to where you may be going this season with your game.
Yeah, great points. I think you're exactly 100% right. I couldn't agree more. Clint, any final thoughts and advice that you would want to give some golfers that are getting ready to shed some of that winter thaw and come out and meet you on the golf course? What advice would you say in preparation for coming out?
Well, I think John pretty well laid it out pretty clear. I mean, I could use some different words maybe, but the subject matter would be pretty much the same. I don't want to be that repetitive, but I think what he just got through saying is perfectly fine. And it really comes back to what I spoke about earlier. I want to see what the club's doing first. He talks about the club face being square, and the same ideas. And so, the main thing to do is, and I think he's correct, is to understand where you're at. Expectations are important. Check your ego at the door, as they say, and go out and try to discover it again. I mean, you discovered it one time. It's not like it's just all of a sudden going to be back again. You have to do some rediscovery, and then try to maybe do a little better than you did the year before as the summer grows. And that comes with basically awareness and information. And we have plenty of information and ways of getting it now that we've never had in the past. So there's really no excuse for not knowing what you're wanting to do with your golf swing. And then you have to either, I don't think you can really get as good as you can be on your own. I don't know how you would go about doing that. I mean, we've all had mentors and helpers, and find that good PGA golf professional in your area that can help you take the information and what you know you've done before and kind of manipulate it and massage it into making having a better summer. And then at the end of the summer, if you're having to give up golf, or in the fall, if you're in the northern, you want to make some notes and understand. Sit down and videotape yourself talking about what you went through in the summer to have some idea of how you're going to get started again next spring. So you're not having to remember it all the time. As you go through the winter months, you've got a base ground to start with. It's kind of repetitive what we talked about earlier, but it's really important to make those end of the season notes to understand. And two, if you're changing instructors or maybe don't have one, you'll have some information to give them to work with. And I think both of y'all understand that the more I have to work with or you have to work with, just the easier it is to help them out.
Yeah. And I think also too, what you can take away from, from sort of last season, if you will, is if you're working with an instructor, is some things that you can be doing. If you're going to be away for a couple of months, you're not going to have the opportunity. Maybe you don't have an indoor facility near you, and you're not going to be able to play that much. Maybe there's some things that you could be doing at home that you could be working on, not just going over your notes, but maybe some physical things that you could be doing, even in those cold winter months, that at least are going to keep certain things fresh. Maybe your grip, maybe, you've got a mirror that you can get in front of and look at your posture and things. There's a myriad of things. So that's a conversation too, as you get ready to wrap up your season, get ready to transition, that maybe what are some things that I can be doing while I wait to come back out next spring, that's going to keep things a little fresher. It's not going to be perfect, but it's going to certainly help me be a little bit better prepared, as opposed to just coming out and having to spend the next several weeks trying to get back whatever I might have had 5-6 months ago. So I think it's always good to have that conversation. But guys, as always, it's been fun. I'm glad that I'm really excited about this new format. We're going to have a lot of fun throughout this year. This is just really the early stages of the season, but I like the fact that we've got the video component to it. It makes it interesting for everybody, I think, and the audience is going to enjoy it, I know. And we're going to kick it up a little bit as we go through the season. But just very quickly, John, if you want to go ahead, let the folks know if they want to reach out to you, the best way that they can do that.
Sure. Just look for the logo. John Hughes Golf is really easy to remember. JohnHughesGolf.com, ampersand, hashtag in front of. I'm at the Omni Orlando Resort at Champions Gate. I'm really happy and blessed to be there. It's a wonderful facility, 2 great golf courses, and we're in the middle of our season. Do get in touch with me through my website or through the social media channels, and come on down and schedule a lesson with me. And I'm also excited to say that I've got 3 assistants with me this year, first time ever. It's working out wonderfully, and everybody's having a great time, and I hope you can come to Orlando and do the same.
Well said. And definitely you guys want to do that. And Clint, what's the best way if people want to start that conversation with you? How can they reach you?
Real simple. It's clintgolf001@yahoo.com. Just drop me an email and I'll respond back to it. But just very quickly, in this basketball season, all I got to say is go Gators.
Nice way to end the segment. Guys, as always, it's always a pleasure having you guys on the Coach's Corner panel. It's definitely a blessing. And like I said, we're going to have a lot of fun this season. All right, I'm going to take a quick short commercial break to hear from one of our advertisers. And when I come back, I'm going to be joined by my very special guest, golf fitness professional, Bob Forman. I'll be right back.
Improve your putting with the Alignment Ball Marker, a revolutionary new in-game putting alignment tool and ball marker. Its patented design allows you to read your putt and adjust your alignment at the same time by using your putter, which improves your accuracy and makes the process of putting faster. 100% legal according to the USGA, by their definition, permitted under the rules of golf. Winner of Best New Product at the PGA Show and only $9.99 on Amazon. And it's also completely customizable for any golf event or as a promotional giveaway. Order at alignmentballmark.com.
All right, welcome back, everybody, to Golf Talk Live. Again, I'm your host, Ted Odorico. My next guest, Bob Forman, is one of the best golf fitness professionals out there. Let me tell you a little bit about his background, and then I'll bring him on the show. You can see him, I know, right now. Bob is a former director of fitness and wellness for Congressional Country Club in Bethesda, Maryland. He is an internationally known as a leader in the field of golf fitness, and his programs have been recognized 3 years in a row, 21 to 23, by the Golf Fitness Association of America. He also holds a Master of Science degree in exercise physiology, as well as a certified golf fitness instructor through the Titleist Performance Institute, or TPI for short. He's got many, many other certifications, too many to get into right now, but let's welcome my very special guest, Bob Forman. Bob, how are you?
I'm good, Ted. How are you doing?
Not too bad. We're going to show a video in a little bit, but we're going to start a couple things first. I just want to get for the listeners here, if you can maybe just give them a chance to look at, for instance, with beginning a new season, if you will, for assessment. Is that a good idea to do a physical, like a fitness assessment each year? And if so, why?
Yeah, it's a very good idea. I mean, to be able to know where your weaknesses are in terms of the golf swing, it really is a good information to have, because you know what to work on. And assessment really anytime during the year is good to do. But if you haven't had one, I highly recommend that you get together with a certified golf fitness professional and go through one. If you hadn't had one in a while, I'd recommend you going back to that professional and having another one done, because things will change, as we get older and as you're playing the game of golf, because it's a repetitive one-sided activity. So in itself, it will create muscle deficiencies and imbalances in the body. So yeah, it's always a good thing to have that information.
Right. And I know that there's a lot of, how often do you think golfers, first off, should have an assessment done throughout the season? Obviously, at the beginning of the season, you want to kind of see, lay down a benchmark, if you will. But how often should golfers throughout the season maybe consider being reassessed?
Well, they could probably go through the whole season, and on an annual basis, get together with that golf fitness professional and go through to see if anything has changed over the previous year.
Right.
Because lifestyle will affect the way our muscles act and react to whether we develop deficiencies or imbalances. And like I say, playing golf in itself can also create those deficiencies.
So I mentioned we were going to take a look at a video that you gave me. So let's take a look at that now, and then what we'll do on the other side, I'll get you to talk a little bit about it. So let's watch this video that Bob sent over, and then we'll talk on the other side.
This is one of my favorite exercises for posture. I'm specifically talking about rounded shoulder posture that we're starting to see a lot more of because of cell phones, computers. That rounded shoulder at address over the ball is going to impact your ability to make that good shoulder turn. So that's going to rob you of club head speed and distance. So from a standing or seated position, you're going to place your hands out in front of you about shoulder height. You're going to bring the elbows back as you pinch or squeeze your shoulder blades together. Hold that squeeze as you externally rotate your shoulders, and then bring your elbows down into your back pocket, and then the hands down behind you, and relax. This isolates those rhomboids in the upper back. We're going to strengthen those guys while we stretch the muscles across the front of the chest to help with alignment. Again, hands out in front. Pinch your shoulder blades together as you bring the elbows back, shoulder height. Externally rotate your shoulders, Bring the elbows down into your back pocket, all the while holding that squeeze, hands down, and relax. I love that exercise. A really good one for shoulder posture. Give it a shot for better golf.
All right. So what I like about that, first off, let's talk about very quickly, as you point out in the video, you talk about, we're doing a lot, looking down at our cell phones on the keyboard, we're slumped over at the desk at the office quite a bit. This is causing this sort of these rounded shoulders, if you will, and that ultimately affects the posture. How common is this that you're seeing now as you do a lot of, is this a pretty common thing now?
Yeah, it's almost an epidemic in golf. I tell you, over the years, I've seen a lot of people in what's called that C posture, which is a rounded shoulder posture, a bowing of the spine. And like I say, it robs the golfer of distance because they're just not going to be able to make that good takeaway, as compared to someone who has what's called an N posture, which is a straight spine.
Right.
Every dentist I work with has C posture because of the fact they're hunched over their patients all day, or like you say, with the computers and the cell phones. It's just doing a job on us. And, coming out of the gate, one of the things that golfers need to kind of address is their setup posture. And because, again, a lot of us are, and we're not aware, most of us aren't aware that we're in this C posture unless someone points it out to you. But it's a good place to start in terms of improving your golf swing and getting more distance or your distance back down the fairway.
Are you seeing now, typically this type of thing, that this sort of C posture, if you will, typically you would see this with a lot of your more senior golfers, traditionally, let's say. In the past, I'm saying, would you not see that more? And before all the technology came out, typically it was when we got into our older years that you would start to see people a little bit more. And then now that with technology out there, it's now happening into even younger generations. Yeah. Would that be inaccurate? That's what I was trying to get at is typically you would see those rounded shoulders as we age, naturally our muscles structure changes and things like that if we're not, keeping fit. But now you're seeing it even in younger generations because of what you were talking about in the video with technology. It's now happening much sooner. So what are some of the cause and effects? So when you find somebody that's got that, what is it doing? Obviously, it doesn't look great when they get into their setup and so forth, but how does that actually affect their golf swing? Because a lot of people don't understand that. Maybe you could explain a little bit how that happens.
Well, again, when you're in a bowed spine posture, which is what the C posture is,
right,
it limits your ability to make that good turn in the backswing. Yep. So the club head's not going to travel as far back. So if it's not going to travel as far back, you're not going to be able to generate as much club head speed to impact. If you're in a nice straight posture, you'll be able to make that rotation a lot better. And the body adapts to the position that it's placed in most of the time. And like you say, nowadays, especially with the video games and such, computers, cell phones, we find ourselves in that rounded shoulder posture. So you develop, as I said in the video, that tightening of the muscles across the front part of the chest and shoulders. You elongate those muscles in your back called the rhomboids, which connect your shoulder blades to your spine, because the shoulder blades flare out when you get into that rounded posture. So, it's just not good for your golf swing, number one. Number two, it's not good for your health because it can relate to shoulder impingement issues, neck issues, and also you tend to crowd out the heart and the lungs in the chest cavity, and you can reduce their efficiency. So it's not a good thing from a golf perspective as well as a health perspective too.
Yeah, and again, I think a lot of people don't understand when they get in a situation like this where they're starting to have that, C posture, as you said, and they don't realize that obviously besides not being conducive for a good golf swing, it's going to affect other areas of your life as well and your quality of life. So obviously this is something so when you incorporate, if somebody's now going to do some of the things that you've done in this video and obviously other videos that we're going to see as the season progresses. Typically, how long will what sort of, if they're doing them properly and they're doing them within a certain period of time and frequency, typically how long would somebody doing that start to notice some differences?
Well, I mean, almost right away. I mean, it also depends on how bad their posture is.
Sure.
The key is that they get into some sort of intervention, that stretch. I love that stretch because it does both stretching the chest muscles in the front, and it also engages and strengthens those rhomboids in the back. So it's a great exercise to do. And obviously, there are a lot of other things that you can do to isolate stretching of the chest and the front shoulders, as well as strengthening those rhomboids. But if that's that stretch alone, if they were to do that every day, they would see some really nice improvements in their posture, and that will play out on the golf course. So it's just something like anything else. You just have to do it on a regular basis in order to get the benefits from it. Now, the other thing too that I want to bring up too is the C posture. We talked about a limited backswing. Now, what a C posture could also do is it could also send people into what's called a reverse spine, where they start to lean back more towards the target in their backswing, which doesn't set them up in a good hitting posture to initiate the downswing in the proper sequence. So that can also impact their ball striking ability and their distance. So it's just not a good thing to have. And once you identify it, it's something you definitely want to try to correct.
Yeah. And as I said a few moments ago, this is something that obviously you see quite a bit in today's golfers and of all ages. And that's what I was trying to get at really earlier. Is it's not something that you typically maybe years ago you would see this more in your senior golfers, but now you're starting to see it even into some of your young golfers. Probably maybe even more so because they tend to be more actively engaged in whether it be video or social media and that. And they're all, you just walk around the street and, their heads down and, they're not even watching where they're walking. So, this is something you're going to start to see. Now, I think they get away with it a little bit more maybe than some of the senior golfers because typically they tend to be in a little bit better shape being younger in that, but it can happen pretty fast as well, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Summer's coming up, warmer weather. We'll be at the beach, by the pool. Look around. A lot of the younger kids who have terrible postures.
Yeah.
So, it's something that, like I say, just from a health perspective, it's something that you want to be aware of.
I remember, jokingly, my mother used to always say to me when I was younger, and I'd be sitting at the table and she said, pull your shoulders back. You're starting to hunch over. And so I'm keeping that video on hand and I'm going to start doing it myself. And, I won't do it on air.
My fifth grade teacher in elementary school used to make me walk around with a chalk eraser on my head because
I had that too.
Oh, kid, I must have hunched over. So I have heard of things for my posture today.
Yeah. Yeah, I've got to work on mine as well. So if you were to put together, Bob, a checklist for people as they get ready, again, obviously people in Florida and other areas that have Arizona that can play golf all year round, they're doing different things, and it's always a good idea, to keep yourself fit. But what would be a checklist? What would be a sort of a quick checklist that you would want people to go through as they get ready to come out and get excited about some spring golf? What from a fitness perspective, what should they be doing, and who should they really be contacting to get some help with that?
Yeah, swinging a golf club can take a real toll on the body, and if you haven't done it in a while, it's something that you want to ease back into. And the older we get, the more we feel that day after, 2 days after, a round of golf. So, my recommendation would be start off easy. You want to get your body back into, being ready to play golf, golf ready. So hit the driving range, swing a golf club. If the weather's still bad, go to a simulator, indoor simulator, and just continue to swing a golf club just to keep that body, conditioned for that activity. And then when you do start playing, maybe play 9 holes at a time for a couple of rounds before you actually get into 18. Because like I said, you'll feel it, the next day or two. But, hopefully you're stretching during the off season. Hopefully some of us are into a golf fitness program doing some golf specific strengthening for the game. If not, any time of year is a good time to get into a program. And again, they should try to find somebody who's certified in their area. And, TPI, the Tyler Performance Institute, has a website that you can go in and locate somebody who's certified, who, will have the background knowledge to take somebody through an assessment. Even maybe to take a look at their golf swing, to look at the gross swing faults that they have, and to kind of correlate the two together, because there are strong correlations between specific musculoskeletal deficiencies and certain swing faults.
Yeah.
And the nice thing about doing the assessment piece and identifying those deficiencies is now you know what to work on. So it becomes more of a time-efficient program, as opposed to just kind of going in blind and saying, geez, what should I be doing? And some of the strength exercises may not even relate to the game of golf. So it's good to kind of find somebody who has that knowledge.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And for those that want to, obviously, I'm a firm believer in obviously consult with your physician before you start any sort of exercise regimen. Make sure that you are cleared to do that in case you're sporting any sort of injury or past, operations or what have you that may impede you from doing certain things. You always want to do that. But yeah, there's so many things. And I think also too, it's important. I want to mention, you talked about TPI, and there's obviously some others out there as well that offer some good golf fitness programs where you can get your certification. You want to make sure that person is certified. And you want to also make sure that they're golf certified, because there's certainly a lot of good fitness certifications out there, but there are certain exercises that are more golf conducive or golf related. So that doesn't mean that others can't help you, but if you're getting somebody that's yoga certified or something like that, certainly there's some things, I'm not criticizing it, but there may be some things that could be different. So you really want to make sure you do your homework before you do that, because it's your body, and you want to make sure that you're dealing with somebody that has the knowledge and expertise. But if folks want to learn more information, I know you have a website. You want to share that with the audience, and then they can maybe go and look up some more information that you've got to showcase.
Definitely, yeah. It's www.golfitcarolina. It's just one F and one T, so it's golfit, GOLFIT, Carolina.com.
Sounds good. Well, Bob's going to be joining us throughout the season with some more great videos and some other things. This was just sort of an introduction to Bob. Bob has obviously been a guest on the show before, but I wanted to bring him on. We're going to see about maybe every other week. We'll see what his schedule permits, and to come on and talk about things that we can do, not just at the beginning of the season to get ready for a new golf season, but throughout the season, things that you should be looking for, maybe some telltale signs if you've been injured or had something going on, maybe some precautionary things that you can do, and obviously work together with your physician. But Bob, I want to thank you, and we're going to transition into another segment here in just a moment, but hang tight, and I'll be back in just a few moments. We're going to hear from another sponsor, if you will. And when I come back, I'm going to be joined by my very special guest, my featured guest tonight, CEO of ShotScope, David Hunter. We'll be right back. All right. I'm very excited to have tonight's guest join me. He is an industry leader in technology. It's the CEO of ShotScope, David Hunter. And here's just a little bit more. I'm going to just give you a little bit more information because I want to get him on the show, and then I'll talk to you in a little bit more detail. Some of the things I found very interesting in his bio, number one, and then obviously we're going to talk about some of the great products that he's got. So he's got a background in electronics and a master's degree in engineering at the Edinburgh in Scotland. And he's a native that's applied his experience from the corporate world, teaching and consultancy, to his real passions. He was obsessed with golf, he said, in his 20s, and that is where his real hunger was, to design something in golf. And he also has a martial arts background as well. And I want to talk to him a little bit more about that. So please welcome my very special guest, the CEO of ShotScope, David Hunter. Hi, David. Welcome. Oh, it looks like your mic was me. I've got it now. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Ted. Nice to be on.
Nice to be on. All right, so let me just ask you. I just read out part of your bio because you've got quite a lengthy bio, and I wanted to ask you about a couple things in there that I found of interest that we can talk about, and then I know we're going to talk about some of the great things that ShotScope is doing for the industry. You've got a martial arts background, and you talk about how
traveled the world, compete internationally, and train with people that were much senior than myself. So black belts that were world champions. And, martial arts is great for kids. It teaches you a lot about courtesy, respect, self-control. We train pretty hard. We're training 6 nights a week. And obviously that's great. It's life lessons for work and other areas of life like university as well.
So it really, what it did is it gave you a sense of discipline. If that was, I guess, an accurate way of putting it, is it caused you not only to be disciplined in the martial arts, but also that discipline was carried over in your collegiate times, and then obviously now in your business life as well. So it obviously gave you a little bit different perspective than maybe some folks that maybe didn't have that advantage that you did. And are you still practicing it today?
No, unfortunately not. I went to university. I was traveling so much. I was all over Europe, all over the UK, traveling and competing. And when I went to university, I just couldn't do both.
Yeah. But do you do, and I mean, obviously you're not competing now, but do you still practice some of the martial arts from a physical standpoint, just to keep yourself in shape? And
Not at the moment. To be honest, I'm so passionate about golf and ShotScope at the moment that I've got a young family as well. So my son is actually 2 grades away from black belt, which is fascinating.
Wow.
So he kind of lives on through him. But I just don't get the time to, and to be honest, Ted, I've got this very addictive personality. So if I was to go back into martial arts and taekwondo, I could be there 6 nights a week again, very easily.
Yeah, and I think ShotScope would probably suffer a little bit if you had to spend all your time doing that. You wouldn't be able to spend time doing ShotScope. So,
exactly.
So tell us where the idea for ShotScope came from. How did that come about?
Yeah, I was in my early 20s and I was getting into golf in a big way. So my grandfather had taken me to play golf quite a bit, and I could always hit the ball well. I went for a round of golf when I was about 22, 23, shot in the low 80s, and straight away was hooked. And like I said, that addictive personality, and then I was in the range, practicing, I was trying to improve my game, and it just became a passion.
Now, you have a passion, obviously, for golf. And from what I was reading out in the bio, you didn't really kind of get obsessed till you were in your 20s. So did you start playing, though, when you were relatively young and then just kind of got more serious as you got into your 20s? Or did you not maybe start until a little bit later on in life?
I could always play a little bit of golf, and I could always strike the ball pretty well. I was good at multiple sports. So taking up golf, hand-eye coordination, it came quite quickly with yards.
Yeah.
Hitting the ball okay. And I'd go out with my grandfather, who was a serious golfer, and I would run against him when I was 12, 15, and I wasn't delighted about that.
Right.
So it was always there. I didn't really look seriously until my 20s.
Right.
Always played a little, just wasn't serious about it in those teenage years.
Yeah, I think obviously, when you're young like that, you have different interests. At different points of your life. You obviously your collegiate life when you got into college and that. your interests shift. You've got studies now. You've got socializing with your mates, and obviously the fairer sex comes in your peripheral vision. So that becomes of interest as well. So unless you've got your heart set on being the next Nicholas or Palmer or whoever, it's not going to be in your vision right away. You also have, as I was mentioning a little bit, you've got obviously a very extensive background in technology and data. So you're essentially, technology is something that's also somewhat of a passion of yours, and obviously data plays into what you guys are doing now. So how has that helped you? What data were you looking at? Maybe you can explain a little bit for those of us that are not as serious about those numbers and things like that. What data are you looking at that you're incorporating into ShotScope?
Yeah, it goes all the way back to those martial art days. When we competed, we would use minimal gains. We would look at our data, look at how we were performing. We would go to competitions and we would analyse our competitors a lot. And like I said, I trained with world champions, so these processes that they were using, results. And I was British champion multiple times, Scottish champion multiple times,
Right.
won across Europe as a kid using this process. So when I started to play golf, and I was playing with friends who had played for 20 years and they were single figure handicaps, they're hitting these big, beautiful high draws,
Right.
all over 250 yards and scoring in the 70s. And I'm shooting in the 90s going, right, how better and fast, much quicker. And I started to apply the Taekwondo knowledge into golf. And look, it didn't make me a lot of fun to play golf with.
Right.
I basically recorded every single shot for about 3-4 years.
Yeah.
And I also would record in notebooks, had 8 different notebooks. And I would record off the tee, dispersion, distance, same with approach play, the location of the shot if it was off the green,
Yep.
and it was in the vicinity of the green and then information pattern as well. And I would take the same approach to the golf range as well. I'd take 10 shots, and then I'd walk them out, measure them, measure dispersion. I just recorded all this data. And what was really interesting was after about 2 years, I was not hitting the ball that much different. I was really struggling to try and get improvements in my swing over the 4 years playing golf.
Yep.
And this is where I jumped into this engineering process. That after 2 years of the engineering process, handicap had dropped from 16 to 5 in 2 years.
Wow.
I'd done quite well in the golf club, winning competitions during that period as well.
Sure.
But look, I was obsessed with the game. I was on the range 3 times a week. I was probably playing 5 times at least a week, sometimes twice in one day. But I was working on my game, not working on my swing, not trying to make changes to my swing, but just how I managed my game, and it was getting results.
So when you sort of gathered the data and you started assessing everything and you sort of boiled it down, what did it tell you? What information you recorded a lot of information, obviously, and I understand the information you did record, but at the end of the day, when you boiled it all down, what was it telling you, not only just about your game, but what did it tell you from a golfer standpoint in general, what this data and how important it would be moving forward?
Yeah. So for me, I developed a little bit of software and I'd enter this in this data and took 3 hours every single Sunday to the data. Right. And what the data told me was two areas of my game that are really important. If I find the fairway off the tee, which I was struggling with a bit, but that wasn't the area that gave me the biggest gain. Around the green and putting gave me the biggest gain. So I was playing as a 15 handicap at the time, and you hit a bad drive, you get the ball to the green, and if chipping and putting was working, and on a stroke index, I was playing maybe 5 handicap on chipping, and even though I was a 12 handicap, I would make gains that I shouldn't really get. And basically, you're saving a score there, right? Because You could hit a bit drive, you could hit a mediocre approach play, and get up and down and with the par. And of course, it's the same as perfect drive, usually a pro shot, and miss birdie. And that was fascinating. And I leaned on that a long time. Even my golfing ability, when I got to a 5 handicap, the thing that differentiated myself from a scratch golfer was I couldn't get my shot close to the hole. And when I did get them close enough to the hole, I was not making the birdie putt because I was not bowling into the putts in general. So it was that became a psychological element of being scared of the birdie putt. When I did get it 1 feet, I was frightened to get 3, 4, 5 feet past, which was crazy. So I went on a run for a year where I never missed a 3-footer.
Right.
And so why would you not birdie putt, right? It's amazing how there's that psychological element in there as well.
Well, and if you look at a lot of the guys on tour, there's some guys out there that have fallen into that same category where, all of their approach shots might be good, but then they're not capitalizing on the putt, or their approach shots might be a little off, but they're putting, so it's always it's a never, this is what, always makes me laugh when you hear people say, well, I want to really master this game. I don't know anybody that says, there's a lot of people that looks like they have, but really nobody ever masters this game, because there's always going to be conditions that you're not counting on, whether it be the weather or, what have you, maybe how you're feeling that particular day, plays a lot. And psychologically, you raise an excellent point, because psychologically, a lot of players get out there and they almost psych themselves out, because they get into a situation, they hit a great tee shot, and think, okay, man, I'm going to just get this one close. And maybe they get it on the green and they're got 20 feet and they say, oh, I can see the birdie. And the next thing you know, they 3-putt.
Yeah.
And they're right. And we've all been.
It's amazing. I'll tell you a funny story. I used to play in competitions on Sundays.
Yeah.
And I remember this vividly. And obviously doing martial arts for close to 10 years, being at a high level. You're physically fit. Yeah, you're strong. It was a psychological, that level, everyone's physically fit and strong.
Sure.
Psychology. And I remember standing 15th hole, home club, and I wasn't on a score, but the guy I was scoring for was on a good score.
Yep.
He was playing off a 17, 18 handicap. He was only maybe 3-4 over par scratch. And he started on the 15th, and he said, and he's a good drive, right? So it's a long second shot, over 200 yards.
Yeah.
And he's standing there and he says, when I stood here, more like this, I shanked my next shot into the rough. And I went, wow, that's a bold statement to make at this stage. You'll not believe it. That's the shot into the rough. And I was standing there going, how can that be? And that little moment, I realised that I was maybe only 3-4 years into my golfing journey at that stage. And I realised, wow, we can really impact ourselves and, our own mind when it comes to golf.
You see a lot of players over the years who, were leading on Sunday coming into the tournament. You think, okay, they've got this. They're a few strokes ahead. And then all of a sudden, a couple of hours later, their heads hung down. Somebody else is hoisting up the trophy. And you're thinking, what happened? What happened to this guy that was leading on Sunday? And it's and they're all good. But let's be honest. You've seen, I know, hundreds and probably thousands of professional golfers of all stripes. And you've watched them out in the practice tee. You've watched them out, and they're all good ball strikers. Some better than others, but but it's what goes on in the head. And this is why people like Nicklaus earlier on, and then ultimately Tiger Woods for so long, why they were able to dominate at that level, because they were able to manage the mind game, if you will, better than everybody else during that time. Now it's become a different type of game. It's more muscle. It's, let's belt it out there. And you don't see the same approach to it that you once did. I want to give you an opportunity to talk about as well the many talented people at ShotScope. I know you've got a great team there. This is an opportunity to brag a little bit about them, and then we'll get into some specifics. So go ahead.
Look, it's not difficult to brag about them. They are truly amazing. When you start one of these journeys and, you come up with the idea, you start the business, the thing that really has surprised me is people that share the vision, come along the journey, and you know, you question why, you question why they're so committed, love for the love for the game. It's been amazing to really experience, this group of individuals coming along and sharing my vision and sharing my mission. And it's not really my mission and vision anymore, it's our mission and vision. It has been for a long time.
Right.
But yeah, the amount of hours to work, the amount of effort, and way that have helped to evolve with the line, the business, the software, all the offerings that we bring to the table. For a long, long time, this has much been about us. And these guys have been here for, many of them have been here for 7, 8 years. They're really cool figures. On paper, I'm the founder of Shop, but these guys are not founder as I am for the business. And really fortunate. The talent in there when it comes to golf is amazing. We've got European Tour players, X-World Cup, one of the top.
Gavin Deere, right?
Yeah. Gav's been on the journey since 2015 with me.
Wow.
Was the second employee. I was a first employee. I was taking salary at the time. And Gavin was the second employee in the business, now our commercial director, and it does a fantastic job. We've got Jennifer Paxton, who's a top female amateur. But we've also got ex-coaches, others that have played on mini tours, as well as raft technical experts as well. And it just works well. We really focus on building products that meet the golfer's needs. And that our golfers really help. Look, we've got handicapped golfers as well, and they're heavily involved in that design process as our scratch golfers. I think we have like 5 champions at Shot Scope. It's crazy.
Yeah. And let's talk about some of the benefits of Shot Scope, and you can get into some of the products and that you have, but walk us kind of through sort of on off the golf course, some of the products and the benefits that people are going to find with that. I mean, I'm familiar with your products, but obviously there's some new things coming along, but you can talk about that as well. But just kind of give us an overview of some of the benefits.
Yeah, it's an ecosystem of on-course, off-course products. And obviously on-course, we have rangefinder, we have GPS handheld, GPS watches, and many of those products have got shot tracking capabilities, automatic shot tracking capabilities as well. And when you go out and use our shot tracking products, you basically wear or use the product, come back, press one button, and all of a sudden you've got access to 100 stats, analytics, insights about your game, maps that detail your around.
Goes back to the data that you talked about earlier, right?
Goes back to the data, and to come back to the psychological element, when you see your game laid out and you see your strengths and weaknesses, and you can actually visualize your game, it does give you this new confidence in your own ability. It actually dials in your abilities, so you really understand what you're capable on the golf course. The amount of golfers that don't truly know how to hurt their clubs is scary. Yeah, I mean, we've seen a stat early on where it was 85% of golfers above a 5 handicap from 120 yards an hour were leaving the shot short of their intended target. So, straight away, you just see these gains, and of course, the gains that the golfer gets, and that education about their own game, filters into every round they play. And all of a sudden, the psychological confidence element comes into play on top of it.
Well, and I've been teaching now for over 30 years, actually 32 years. And, one of the biggest things I used to see from a lot of the people I worked with, a lot of the players and that I worked with, is the lack of how far they hit each club. They have no idea. Or what they do is they misunderstand, and they'll say, well, I can hit it 100 and, let's say they're 7-iron, they're hitting 165 yards. Well, is that carry distance, or they don't understand the difference? I mean, it makes a big difference. And so they're kind of all over the place. And this is why the tour players are so efficient, because they know their numbers. They know exactly within a very what their disbursement is, or dispersion is, what they know, the distance they're hitting each club's within a very nominal amount. And it's because they look at, as you did, they look at the data. And they need to know that, because a putt or an approach shot, if it's off by, if their club face is a a point, whatever degrees open or closed, that could mean the difference of several yards by the time it gets down the fairway. So, it's important, and to try to instill that into, our amateur golfers is, is a tough nut to crack.
But look, it's one of these things. We see, I love the moment you see the gains that the amateur golfer sees from this. And a lot of people years gone by would say to us, is this a better player's product?
Right.
Particularly in short track. And actually, the biggest gains are for 50, 20 plus handicaps.
Yeah.
Obviously, when they hit the iron, the range of distance can be quite significant. So, the short, the shortest shot and the longest shot can be wildly different. The pro is much dialed in.
Yeah.
So we have this, it's our own stat that actually looks at the exact distance that the amateur golfer hits it and takes out the outliers, both low end and high end, to give a true reflection of their golf game.
Right.
And that just we've worked on for 8 years to improve and refine. So it's actually a short slope stat, but it's not average distance. And when you look at that, and it takes out all your outliers, you're constantly moving, ending how you're playing. All and that is how far you hit your style, whatever the number may be.
Right.
Then when you're on the golf course, we provide you the distance to hit. You pull your 7-iron, knowing the exact distance, and it's a much often swing.
Yeah, and that's really what it all boils down to too, is having that confidence on the golf course. And if you don't have that, you look at a lot of players over the years that have, his name escapes me, Ian Baker Finch. I remember, he was a phenomenal player for many, many years. Then all of a sudden, and there's a lot of factors behind it, but, suddenly he didn't have that same confidence anymore. And, and I'm not, criticizing him, of course, but, he's just one example. Even Greg Norman for a while, I mean, he was a phenomenal player for a long time, but then he just was not, as time went on, was just not able to compete at the same level. And it happens to everybody. But some worse than others. I mean, some have had bigger issues than others. But
it's funny. It's funny you should mention those two, because obviously they both lost majors in a big way.
Right, that's why I brought them up.
Can you imagine coming down the stretch and
yeah,
that was live with you for a long time. No matter how mentally strong you are.
Yeah, and Ian, of course, had his fair share of demons along the way, but Norman particularly, had it happen twice. So, it was kind of the double whammy for him, but it is what it is. But so what are some of the new things? What's new in cooking at ShotScope? Talk about some of the new products that have come out.
Yeah, so we've got a product range of 12 at the moment. Just brought out our new laser rangefinder, the Pro X.
Yeah.
And you can actually customize it. So it's got a little metal where we can print a logo. And hopefully get that personalisation to your products. It comes in white, it comes in black, it's got a range of 800 yards. It follows on from our Pro L2, which has been very, very successful in the USA. The $50 laser rangefinder that is very accurate, very quick, comes with slow, comes with a magnet, and it's just a beautiful rangefinder. And yeah, it's very popular in the US. And then we've also got a more new watch that just launched. Nice large round screen. Does not have shunt tracking in it, but it's one of our more marketed products. And you can choose from a range of 15 different colour straps, and actually do when you choose it. So you can pick. We track colour on some of our previous product lines. And we track the sales that we were seeing on the website. And a lot of our customers came in, looked at the colour, it was black. Right. So when we seen that, we said, right, so for future products, we're going to offer 2 strap options. And the golf can go just black and a grey, maybe just a colour that's relevant to them personally.
Sure. Yeah, so it gives them a little bit of variety. So obviously your customer feedback is extremely important. You want to get information. That's your data from them is, okay, what do you like? What are you looking to accomplish with the product? What is it, what benefits do you want to see? So again, you sort of mix that all together. You look at things, you pick apart what is going to be the most beneficial for obviously a larger, if there's one guy out of 10,000 that wants something, obviously you're not going to be able to make those modifications. Maybe not now, but who knows down the road. But right now with the ability to look at the data, and say, okay, this is what the customers, this is the experience that they're looking for. This is what they want to get out of that rangefinder or out of that watch. And then you put that together. How long does it typically take from when that concept comes in to make adjustments before it gets back out in the market?
Yeah, it really depends on the feature. Some features take quicker to develop, refine, and launch than others, and it's the same with some of the technologies within the product line as well. I think we gather data through two routes. We actually talk to our users directly, and that can be interviews, user case studies, or actually we get users together. But we also send out questionnaires, and I mean, we did one a couple of months ago where we had 6,500 responses in 24 hours.
Wow.
And, so that's probably from about 200,000 users, so really good response rate in the past. And look, we've always looked at users, our V1, V2 to V3, and then the product line we have now. They're really important user feedback. Can you improve this? Can you change this? Can you update this? And, I'm a big believer, an engineer. I used to design for oil and gas, avionics, medical companies, and it all starts with the customer and the customer requirements. It's not any different from the golfer. We want to talk to our golfers. We want to have good relationships with them. We want to know good, bad, and ugly. Tell us. It's great that golfers come and tell us what they love, but they also please tell us what they don't like. We're always with our team backgrounds, we'll always be evolving our product line. We'll always be offering new products and really meeting the needs of golfers and launching things that improve their game. That's our mission, is to help golfers be better. And look, one of the interesting things is we don't have a subscription, and then it's our real focus of the company that we develop products that are for all golfers. Our products that add value, when at $150 all the way up to $350. So there's a range there that makes it available to all golfers everywhere in the world. But part of that is also you get access to all your data. You get access to map updates. We update 8.5. We've got our own golf map database. We map golf for ourselves. And we update 8.5 golf courses every year ourselves. The team here.
Wow.
And none of that wrapped up in a subscription. We do not do subscriptions here at Shaw.
Yeah, and that's that's a really great point that you raised, because people are getting bogged down with subscriptions, and not just to products like yours, but which obviously you don't have, which is nice, because a lot of them do come with that. And I'm not saying this as a criticism, but I mean, by the time you add up your Netflix and this and that, it's people are pinching their pennies, and golfers, it's certainly not a cheap game. It's up there with but so to be able to see and get that valuable information and not have to commit to a subscription is a nice benefit for you guys to be able to offer to your clients.
It's been our philosophy from the start. So, I'm fortunate enough. I've now been doing this for 10 years, believe it or not. And the first 4 years was just developing the R&D. All our tech's developed in-house, R&D teams are in-house. So, the first 4 years with our shot tracking technology that really is very complex, hardware, manufacturing, and software. It took 4 years to develop and refine. Actually, it then took years after that to refine even further. So we do everything in-house. Right from the start, we said we're not going to have a subscription. But we also went through days where subscriptions were, an investment in VC landscape, and subscriptions were a big thing. And it's only in the last 3 years you've seen a movement in this there. We've been through the phase where we tried to kind of bend our corner on subscriptions and time saying we're not going to do this, but we think it's right for the golfer. Whereas now it's definitely a movement to less subscriptions, and it's been our mission. It's like we haven't changed all in that.
Yeah, you have, I mean, and there's nothing wrong with it. I mean, I think there's a time and a place for it, and there's nothing wrong with it. But I think sometimes it's nice to get something and not feel that have some sort of obligation, or you have to do this to get that. And I think people just want to go out and as you said, they want to improve their golf game. They want to get better. And the main thing is we want golfers to have fun. And if they're frustrated and not enjoying themselves, then they're less likely to drop out of the game. And, we've seen that over the years. Obviously, with the onset of COVID a few years ago, we saw a big surge in the golf industry with people that never played before. And I like the fact you said something that really, touched on a thought that I had, and that is making it more accessible for the golfer. So you have a great product range for every level, really, of golfers. So more of an entry level to those that are maybe a little bit more experienced and are willing to make a bigger investment. And that's important, because if you don't have that, and if you're all just strictly one area, then you eliminate a lot of folks. And I know that many of the new golfers that have come in are they're very, very savvy when it comes to shopping. I mean, they really are. Much more than probably we were growing up, but and they're very particular where they're going to spend their dollars. So, if they're going to play, right?
Yeah, of course. Look, I mean, I've got a young family. I know that pain well myself. Kids are not cheap. They just get more expensive the older they get. But look, what we really want here is, we want to provide products and software that's accessible to all. We want golfers to experience that improvement that we've been privileged to experience ourselves through using our own products. And hopefully, between understanding that we're going to put in place products at a good sensible price point that's fair for golfers, and they get this huge benefit that they'll stay with us for a long time. And purchase multiple products over years. But it's very much a long term. Our investors, shareholders, our board are amazing in that they say that we're going to be doing this for a long time. Let's treat our customers, our users in this manner. And that's great. That's my own vision, the team's vision is to do that as well. So, of course, we need to add value. A little bit add value to the golfer and improve. Like just on that, we're improved by 4.1 shots in around 30 rounds of golf at the moment.
Wow.
So it's improvement.
Yeah, and I mean, I look at how many years, when you look at the stats, how many years that golfers didn't improve. So even 4 point. I mean, that's a big piece of the pie right now, is to get them improving. And that's been one of the frustrations that a lot of golfers, and I see that as a teach professional. I mean, you can do all kinds of things, to try to make them better. I mean, obviously they have to put the effort in on their side. But when you give them the right tools in the toolbox, as it were, and you guide them in how to use them correctly and properly, and you give them that technology, and now giving them the data that they can now use, then they're better informed when they get out there, and they're practicing better. I see people out there all the time. I've seen them with Shot Scope. I'm not going to name the competitors. I've seen a few competitors too, but I see them out there using that technology, some better than others, but nevertheless, they're out there using it. And so they're taking full advantage of the benefits that are available. And you guys have been doing this, for some time, and you've been perfecting it, and it's getting better and better as you move along. And I think it's just only going to get better. And I think that it's interesting, your story, and I like your background. Now, I got one final question, and then I'm going to wrap up. Is I understand that, and you're welcome to talk about or not talk about, that you had, I guess, an injury or something recently, and how is that going to affect your golf game, or will it?
Well, actually, it's improving daily. I have to say, I've actually torn the muscle in my arm and pulled away. And tearing the muscle, I've also chipped the bone in my arm as well. So, I mean, look, a lot of painkillers. This was a week ago.
Right.
And the first 3-4 days, I couldn't do anything. I had to get lifts from my colleagues back and forth to the office. So I don't know who's. Well, I do know how it's going to impact my golf game. I suspect I won't be playing much golf.
Yeah.
Actually, I'm thinking at the moment, it's kind of not pain. Like I said, I've been taking a lot of painkillers, but
Yeah.
yeah, doing a bit of renovation at home, and yeah, I shouldn't do renovation work. That's too
No.
much.
No, that's your excuse to get out of the renovations for a little bit. You're sporting an injury and that, but it gives you more time to focus on shot scope and the next, big and best thing that's going to be coming out. And I love, the interesting thing, when I look at it, I played, I'm going to be 61 this Saturday. God, I can't believe I just said that. I'm going to be 61 in Saturday. And, I look back, my father taught me to play when I was 7, officially. I mean, I went out to the range with him before that, but officially he started showing me the ropes when I was 7. And I look at where the game was then and how it is and how the technology has just come up, and not just with what you're bringing to the table, but the golf clubs and the equipment, the golf balls and things like that. It just amazes me. But it's exciting. It's exciting, but it has its place. Obviously, you've got to know how to use it properly, and I think that a lot of the pros got excited. I don't mean necessarily the tour pros, but the pros like myself, get excited when they see this new technology out. But again, it has its place, and you got to know how to use it correctly. But there are so many benefits that arise from it, and so it's got to be fun. It's got to be interesting sitting around the table at work, talking about it and saying how can we make golfers' lives a little bit better. So.
And look, we're here to help with that. We're here to help coaches with a great coaching platform that the coaches can access. I think we've got 400 plus PGA coaches on it at the moment.
Yeah.
From the start, I've always said, yes, technology company, but we're here to work with the industry. We're here to work with coaches and PGA professionals. And I just look at Lawrence on this just turned 11, playing for 3 years. And I look at the equipment he's got: alarm for heads, light heads, have an overswing, was it that? And around the office, he's got the very clubs they hit, which is like a wooden shaft. It looks like one iron. It's just tape. It's like taped up at the handle.
Oh, yeah. I remember that.
My uncle gave it to me when I was like 7, 8, 9 or something. And now, it's like, we're here in Scotland, it's really cold in Scotland most of the time. So, if you have a fan, can you imagine hitting this wooden shafted one iron, whatever it is? So, just to with the club now, go, that's only good. When I see him using this man and he's hit it well, and looking at that going, right, I never experienced that when I was his age. You should keep him in the game for a long, long time, that experience.
Yeah, exactly. Well, David, I want to thank you. And before I let you go, if you would mind, just let the folks know where they can go to get more information about Shot Scope and some of the different products. I know you've got a great website, so if you want to give them that information, and we'll get them to go there and get them to look at some of the great stuff you guys have to offer.
So you can find out more about our product lines at shot.com. We're also available in most major retailers throughout North America, so Dick's Sporting Goods, PGA Superstore, Worldwide Golf, Bedouin Watch, Golf Town Canada. But yeah, available in all major retailers throughout the USA. But you can learn about the product lines on our website.
Perfect. Well, David, I want to thank you very much for joining me tonight on Golf Talk Live. It's been an interesting conversation. I'm again familiar with Shot Scope, but I wanted to share that with the audience, and it's nice to get a perspective from a different part of the industry. I mean, obviously we on this program talk a lot about the teaching side of things and that, but it's always interesting to bring technology into it as well, and talk a little bit about that. And you had a very interesting journey as well, which I'm glad that you were able to share with my audience. If you don't mind, I'm going to stick you backstage for 1 second because I want to talk to you after the show. I just got to do a very quick wrap up, and then I just want to say a couple of words to you when we go, if you don't mind doing that.
Yeah, perfect. It's been a pleasure, Ted. Thanks for having me on.
I appreciate it. All right. Thanks, David. All right. That was my very special guest, David Hunter, CEO of Shot Scope. I want to just, again, a special thanks to him. And also want to thank the guys from Coach's Corner a little bit earlier on, John Hughes and Clint Wright. Thank you guys for always bringing your best to the Coach's Corner discussions. And also my very special fitness guest, Bob Forman, a certified golf fitness professional, joined me just prior to David. Thanks everybody for a great show. And this will be loaded up shortly to our YouTube channel, our iGolf Sports YouTube channel, and also to Spotify. And then the audio version will be available at Spreaker.com or wherever you listen to your audio podcast. But I want to thank everybody for tuning into this week's broadcast. God bless. Have a great weekend, and I will see you next time right here on Golf Talk Live. Have a great weekend, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thanks for joining us. We hope you enjoyed this week's broadcast of Golf Talk Live. We'd like to thank this week's Coach's Corner panel, and a special thank you to tonight's guest. Remember to join Ted every Thursday from 6 to 8 p.m. Central on Golf Talk Live. And be sure to follow Ted on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. If you're interested in being a guest on Golf Talk Live, send Ted an email at ted.golftalklive@gmail.com. This has been a production of the iGolf Sports Network.